Welcome back to the Unbound Athletic Podcast, episode 24. Today we're talking about our 8-week lean muscle building challenge, some of the parameters behind the challenge, and the mindset behind why we're looking at doing a muscle building challenge, where a lot of gyms look at doing weight loss challenges throughout their year, their box or their facility. We're looking at talking about how we best find building muscle goes, the mindset you need to go into the challenge with, and some stuff about our own personal experiences when it comes to building muscle. Starting off with you, Michael, what is the 8-week lean muscle building challenge all about?
Jacked for June. So it's going to run from June into July. It's going to be an 8-week challenge. We're going to be focusing a lot around increasing bone density, increasing performance, and increasing lean muscle mass. No, girls, this does not mean you're going to get huge traps, all right? That's not how it works. The way it works is we're just trying to stress the importance as we get older. Target demographic is going to be anywhere from 22 to 90, all right? We want to try and offset the onset of osteoporosis. So as we age, we want to make sure that we maintain health. And one of the biggest parameters of maintaining health is maintaining lean muscle mass. We're going to help educate people around ways to do that, help balance their lifestyle, 1, with the training element, 2, with nutrition, and then 3, with any supplementation and guidance that they need around that. And we're going to utilize the 8-week challenge, which allows people to do it in a group format. So it allows you to have to be around people with common interests and shared goals, which just means motivation is always going to be higher.
Of course. And when you think about an 8-week muscle building challenge, you normally think boys looking between the ages of 22 to 26, getting super jacked, super swole for these type of challenges. And it can be very deterring for other people who aren't in that age bracket or even that gender bracket looking at doing the same thing. What would your advice be for someone like that who's outside that bracket of the typical 8-week building challenges, and the kind of mindset that they need to have looking at their goals?
So it's more like, obviously there's an aesthetic part of it, but there's a performance part of it. So it's functionality. It's making sure that you're more confident with how you move, you're more confident with how you feel. Inherently, what's going to happen is it's just going to increase energy levels. So people get it wrong where they think you need to have energy to train or you need to have energy to do things, or active people are just super energetic. It's their activity that drives the energy or that lifestyle. So it's creating the environment that the body then has to adapt to. And then inherently you become more energetic, you become someone who's more driven, you become someone who's more motivated, but you'll start out in the same position. You'll start out with making sure that you create the habits and you step out of your comfort zone, you overcome that intimidation factor initially, and the 8-week challenge is a great way to do that.
It's a great way to at least get started on potentially something that you may struggle with. Well, a lot of people we find who do these challenges, especially on the male side, are people who struggle to gain weight, which for some ladies out there, they might hear that and be like, oh, screw those guys. Like, you know, I wish I had that struggle. But like, these dudes generally have body dysmorphia to the point where they're trying to eat the worst kind of foods to put on weight, put on mass, and they just can't. Like whatever it is that they are lacking, they're not able to get that extra little bit of muscle mass. And we find a lot of the times it just comes from not only the environment that they surround themselves in, but the lifestyle that they're acting, the way that they're, you know, carrying themselves and doing things. What would your recommendation be for that type of dude who's looking at adding mass, who struggles, who's always been that skinny guy, that guy who just never packed it on like his mates?
Might just be a bit more guidance around specific things they need to change. Inherently, they could just be more active. They could be like myself, just fidgety. So when they are sitting around, they don't sit still for very long. They always find something to pick up or click, or they're always that annoying kind of like pest in the room is the best way to explain it. They're just always going to have high step counts. So if you just were to track their steps, recommendation is 10,000. They're probably more like 15 to 20 without even trying. They don't even need to worry about that. So inherently their energy expenditure is just high. So they would need protocols and guidance around how to make sure that they're mitigating that or trying to eat in a surplus to manage that. You will hear body types and things like that. It's all just energy balance. Sometimes we dive into, we've spoken a little bit with training in general and recovery protocols. We dive into all these 1%ers and we just ignore the main facts. ignore the mechanisms of action. We try and separate and pick things that put a little bit less responsibility on ourselves. We just need to reverse that process.
Yeah, and we see that often with genetics. People blame their genetics for the reason why, I can't put on muscle because I have bad genetics. Like, my parents really let me down in that sense. And it's like, well, there might be areas that you struggle to put on muscle, but I always find that someone always has something that they're good at, specifically when it comes to the physical side, the fitness. Like, whether it's like, I just can't put on mass, but you might have really overdeveloped calves, and a bodybuilder out there is looking at you like, God damn it, that guy has like the calves that I wish I had. I do all these calf raises and all this calf training. I can't get anything near this dude. So like, yeah, there's going to be inherently things you're going to struggle at, like body parts that you will see not develop compared to others, but you just got to look at yourself and what you are actually good at and start there, and then develop your whole training process around that. Be like, maybe I don't have to do as much calf work because naturally my calves look amazing. Maybe I need to double down on my bench press because my chest isn't really as developed as it could be. Let's flip the script to ladies. So we've covered a little bit about men. Ladies, obviously putting on too much mass. Oh my God, I don't want to get too bulky.
That's not how it works. I feel like that's where we get angry with the women. So the women get with us because they're like, they can't put on weight or they can't get fat, blah, blah, blah. For the women, it's like, I just don't want to get jacked. It doesn't work like that. It's not like you just wake up and your traps are massive. It takes a very long time for your body to adapt and lay down new tissue and increase the mass and volume of that tissue. So at some point you're going to go, okay, my traps are getting a little bit more defined. Just don't train your traps as much.
And it's like, for that fear as well, those ladies, it's very easy to lose muscle. So if you ever got to the point where you were like, oh wow, I'm getting way too big, or this is not the physique that I was generally looking for, reduce your protein intake, increase carbs and fat, and you'll see a dramatic change in your physique. Or even just stop training as much or those specific muscle groups, and you're going to see a little bit of a difference in your body. But I guarantee that that's a 0.1% of women. For the majority of them, you'll never get that big. You'll never get to that bodybuilder position where you're so large that people think that you're a dude.
You also need to be careful with all of that, where it's like you really need to think about, is it just cultural influence and what we think is socially trending, whether it's big bums, whether it's big lips for the boys, whether it's big biceps, and what you actually want. We need to separate the two. So what actually makes you feel better and you more confident? And we always talk about walking your own path, being careful not to just try and do what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
I highly recommend people just take some time to sit back, reflect, and think about what actually matters to them.
Yeah.
You'd be very surprised at how different it might be compared to everyone else, and that's fine.
Yeah, and inherently the challenge itself, one of the great things about it is there's not just one option. It's not just a surplus option. You don't just have to be putting on mass, and that includes body fat. There is a maintenance option that we've looked at as well that I believe is going to be very popular for a lot of people, where the goal of the option is to maintain the current body weight you're at while putting on a little bit of lean muscle mass. So you won't see your body fat percentage very, very much. You might not get the results as quickly as someone who's in that surplus category, but what you will have is a more sustainable amount of muscle gain while having an easier diet to follow. You don't feel bloated. You don't feel like you're overeating. You don't feel like you're in a position where you're like, you can, I don't know if anyone out there knows, but you can generally feel when you're putting on weight. I feel like it's like this weird burning sensation that I've overeaten constantly for a long period of time, and you feel sluggish, you feel slow, you just your appearance will obviously change over time, but the feeling comes first. And that maintenance group, they won't have that feeling. And for a lot of those surplus people, they won't have that either, because it's not going to be a crazy huge surplus. You're not in a dirty bulk where you're at McDonald's shoving down Big Macs trying to get your calories. It's still going to be lean meats, healthy food, nuts and seeds, fruit and vegetables, that it's just going to be, some people are eating a little bit more than what they burn on a daily intake, and other people are going to be eating the exact amount that they burn on a daily intake with more intent in mind. The program behind it is going to help you develop not only more mass but more strength. It's going to be a very what I like to call power building base with a hypertrophy focus in this phase. So you will get a lot more higher rep ranges. You'll get more of the pump. So you'll feel like you're working. Sessions will be quite different to what you probably are used to when it comes to CrossFit. And we're running them about 4 days a week. There's 2 leg sessions, 2 arm sessions, and we're covering all bases of the body. Apart from that, what else does the challenge include for people who are very interested in starting?
There'll be a lot of education involved in the challenge as well. We're big on no absolutes. So we really need to understand that we can't be that ignorant because it's not that simple. We can't go, okay, my body weight is 93 kilos. Everything has mass to it. You've just had a sip of water. All right, that has mass that inherently is going to fluctuate your body weight. So talking in these absolutes can be very dangerous, and we're going to help educate people around that to help them find more balance so that they can do this long term. If you look at building lean mass or increasing bone density, it is going to be consistency over time. It takes a long time for you to put on lean mass naturally, especially we want everyone to do it naturally, obviously. It's just a process that takes time. It's a process that's quite expensive for your body. You have to create the optimal environment. The optimal environment, you're battling against homeostasis, which is kind of like your body's constant, and it's always going to want to revert back to that. But the longer you can expose yourself to that current climate or that artificial climate that you're creating with the training, the nutrition, the sleep, the more your body will now start to open up to that. So it's about creating an environment to become the person that you want to be, and then that will end up inherently happening. If you think about adaptation to climate, you don't just go to a colder climate and then you already know how to deal with the colder climate. But the longer you're there, the more you learn to tolerate it and your body adapts. Training is the same. Yeah. So it's going to be very heavily geared towards consistency and making sure that it's sustainable outside of the 8 weeks. You can monetize it to 2, 3, 5 years, and you can find that balance and try and make sure that you're getting the most out of it.
Cool. And if you're someone who's not doing the challenge but just interested in some basic principles about how to put on lean muscle, what would you say your 3 biggest tips for them are?
Consistency with training and understanding that if we look at the studies, the rep ranges in that for hypertrophy and increase in lean mass and bone density don't really change. We have this stigma around, okay, 8 to 10 rep range is where we most commonly see people sitting, trying to avoid the smaller rep ranges, trying to avoid the higher rep ranges. You can train any of them. So you can train 1 to 5 repetitions, you can train 5 to 15, you can train 15 to 30, depending on the day. As long as you're taking yourself pretty close to failure and you're feeling the tension through the muscles, you're going to get adaptation. So don't get too caught up on the periodization of loading when that's your focus. Just try and make sure that you're paying attention to your body. Come in and train and make sure that on that day, whatever weight you choose to do on the bench press, one day you might do 35s. You might do 5 or 6 repetitions, and that's taking you close to failure. The other day, your elbows might be a bit sore, your triceps are a bit tight, or you're just not as mobile because you haven't slept as much, and you do 20s. But you do 20 repetitions at 20, you're still going to get adaptation. Protein intake is going to be massive, making sure that you do get some guidance around that, and then it's consistency. For majority of people, the 4 to 5 days during the week, they're really good. The weekend, they blow out, they undo everything. Understanding that if we are looking at eating in a surplus, the cleaner we do it, obviously the more we can optimize the increase in lean mass, but we're also going to probably get an uptake in body fat mass. That's just the way it works, especially if we've been someone who's carried a little bit more body fat before. Inherently, it's about a 70-30 is generally like the optimum. You do see outliers, but if we just look at averages, so 70% increase in lean mass, 30% increase in fat mass. The cleaner we eat, obviously more we can min-max that. Yeah. The dirtier we eat, the more it kind of fluctuates. It's just understanding that that's kind of part of it. So it's not going to be, okay, I'm just going to increase lean muscle mass. You will probably still feel good. Your image will change. Your energy levels will go up. It's not like you're going to end up going and being sluggish and slow. That's not necessarily how it works. I would definitely say make sure you're taking photos as well, and understand that there is a composition shift going on. So there's a lot of change, and just try and be consistent with the process. Try and find strategies that help you with your food. Talking to someone about that is a really good way to do it. So if you're a shift worker, making sure that you find a a nutrition strategy that allows you to be consistent over a long period of time and hit those goals, and vice versa. If you're someone who works a desk job, trying to make sure that you have a strategy in place that helps you. Training's about consistency and routine. Sleep's going to be the same. Making sure that you understand that going to bed early is better than sleeping in later. Generally, sleeping in later, you'll find that you feel more tired, you don't feel as refreshed. Just go to bed earlier. So make sure that you do prioritize it. If you have a bad night's sleep, it's not the end of the world. Understand that you can still perform on a bad night's sleep. You just want to try and make sure that the next night is going to be something that you double down on. It's the same with training. Like if you miss a training day, that's fine. You just make up the next day. So you come in, you go, okay, sweet, I'm just going to train on a Sunday. I don't normally train on a Sunday. Or you find ways around it. So you try and be adaptable. Sleep's the same. We just need to avoid consistent periods of time with things that are inherently outside of helping us work towards our goal, which means we don't stay up playing games till 1 a.m. 4 nights a week. All right, we go to bed a little bit earlier, especially if that's our goal. Our current goal is to increase lean mass and try and find a more balanced lifestyle.
That probably covers off well the 8-week lean muscle building challenge. It starts on the 19th of June. Easiest way to sign up for that one is our website, unboundathletic.com.au. Looking at starting that lean muscle building challenge, we've got plenty of options there. We've got plenty of ways to help you put on muscle and get jacked.
We'll be doing it with you.
All the ways. We're always doing the challenge with you. Myself, Michael, and Renee are looking at, in some way or another, attacking that challenge with different goals in mind, and we'll be around helping you guys out as well. If you've got any questions about the challenge, don't hesitate to send it to our Instagram or comment on this video, and hope you guys
get jacked.
Yeah, get jacked for June.